Hello and welcome. This is my first live art show, so I hope you will join me and have fun listening to all my stories behind my artwork. Rod's going to be assisting me here in just a moment. So if you want to write any comments in the comment box, he will read them to me if you have any questions or anything. So there is a link in the description of the Facebook Live. It's a bit.ly link, and that will take you to the store page. So that will take you directly to the place where you can purchase any of these works. And it's first come, first serve. So don't wait. If you see something you like, just go ahead and purchase it. Shipping is free on all these works. And if you live out of the country, if you're in Canada or if you're in Europe and you want some of these things, you can just make the purchase and then I will figure out what is the best way to ship it to you, and I will send you an invoice for the shipping amount. Okay, so getting started with our first item here. I have started doing some digital artworks, as some of you know. And this one was a photograph that I took of a beautiful orchid given to me by our daughter, Liz. And I did some playing around with the image in Photoshop and in a few different apps. So I got it to just look a little different than the original image. I thought it was really pretty. And then I printed it out on to silk on my home printer. So I have these sheets of silk that have a paper backing. And then once you print it out, you can peel it off that paper, put a stabilizer behind it, and then quilt away. And then I decided it would be good to mount it in a shadow box. And so I put it in this white shadow box. I think it looks really good. I have it signed right there on the backboard. It's ready to hang. It looks like this. And it's all set to go. So this one is number one on the shopping page. It's called Orchid. And it is originally $150, but for this sale, I have marked it down to $120. So that's the first item. I had to lower all these things from where I originally had them because they were so high I couldn't reach them. So anyway, this one is called Pitalk Maple. Pitalk Maple, because we were in Portland, Oregon, and we were visiting the Pitalk Mansion up on the hill. And I took a picture of a beautiful maple tree. And then I put it into this image into some apps. And I deleted the background. I took all the background out of it. So it was a PNG file. And then I entered it into an app that I could layer some different pictures together. And so I layered the picture of the maple with the clear spaces behind it. I layered that with one of my quilts called, I think it's called Desert Calm. So it's kind of a sun setting and it's sort of purple in the bottom, orange at the top. And I thought they looked really good together. And so again, this is printed onto silk on my home printer, and then quilted, and I mounted it onto foam core, signed it right here. It's ready to hang. It's in a white shadow box. And so again, that is $150 originally, but I marked it down to 120. The dimensions of these two, the Orchid and the Pitalk Maple, are 9 inches wide and 11 inches high. Okay, so let's see what's next. I hope these are stable. So then we have CHOP. This one I have right here. CHOP stands for Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Okay, so it's a wonderful hospital. I have a neighbor here whose daughter works there, and I walked over to West Philly to take a look at this hospital because the architecture, I was told, was really interesting. And definitely look at that. It's a very interesting building. So again, this is an image that I put into an app on my iPad and played around with the colors, played around with it, and came up with this image, which I thought was really fun. Um, it's almost impressionistic, like there are no really strong lines. Um, and I printed it onto silk, put it on the foam core, and it is ready to hang. Since it's a white foam core and the frame is black, I blackened the edge of the foam core so that it would blend in with the frame. So there you go. And let's see, the dimensions of this one is are slightly bigger. It's 9.5 inches wide and 11 3/4 inches high. Okay, so there's the close-up. You can see the signature right there and looks good. All right. Oh, that one didn't go up there. And then Dogwood Multi, this one. This one I took a couple of years ago, the picture. It was when we were living in our former neighborhood in Schwenksville, and it was springtime and the dogwoods were blooming. And this was in one of our neighbors' yards. And so I took a picture of the dogwood branch, and I also took a picture of some beautiful marbled multicolored art paper. You can see the art paper in the background. So, oh, hi, Tammy. Tammy's here. Okay. And I merged the two images together. Of course, first I had to cut all the background out of the dogwood branch because it had stuff from their yard in it. And I just had to cut all that out of the image. And then I superimposed that on top of the picture of art paper and then printed it onto silk, just like the other ones you saw. So this one is a horizontal orientation. It is also signed. See if you can see my signature there. It's a little hard to see, but it is signed and ready to hang on the back. And the dimensions of this is 9.5 inches high, 11 3/4 inches wide. So really beautiful with all the colors in the background. And the quilting I did on it is sort of a horizontal, meandering, sort of Asian water design that I use for the quilting in the background. So it's kind of gives it a peaceful feeling. And again, it's in sort of a deep shadow box. And there you go. See if I can hang that without it falling down. Okay. This is my design wall that I'm hanging everything on. So it's hanging on pins that are stuck into the wall. Of course, you wouldn't hang it that way on your wall. Next is Collins Park. So I'm going through all these digital works first. These are images that I created, from pictures that I took with my iPhone mostly. So Collins Park is a wonderful, skinny little park on Chestnut Street, not far from where we live. And it's very narrow. You can see that one of the Liberty, what is this? No, this is one of the Liberty Towers, I think. The tall skyscraper in the background. but the gate is so amazing. The gate to the park is, I don't have all, I forgot to write down the information, but it is in the description on my main um, Rachel Derstine Designs page on the original listing. If you want to know more about this gate and the architect who made the gate, you can read more about it there. I just made a really short description for the store page, so it won't be on the store page. But again, this, I just loved all the curly foliage, vines, leaves. It's a, steel, it's a steel gate. And so it's like a sculpture. It's really amazing. And it's slightly rusted, and so you can kind of see the beautiful park behind it and that skyscraper behind it. And that again is printed on silk, quilted, and this is ready to hang. It's the same dimensions as the other black ones, that like Dogwood Multi. It's the same dimensions, so 9.5 by 11 3/4. Okay, and vertical. So there is a close-up of that. Okay, all right. And then we have Philly Collage. So this one is very similar. It has that same image in it, but it is a collage of several different images. So here you can see the Collins Park image that I showed you in the other one. Here is an image of Comcast Center and some of the surrounding buildings and the reflection off the glass from Comcast Center and the sky. And then down here is the Rittenhouse Hotel, which is that interesting architecture hotel that sits right on Rittenhouse Square. So this is a collage there. I stitched the different images together and created a larger collage and then quilted it after I printed it out on silk. So this is larger. This one is 13.5 by 13.5, I believe. Yeah. So this is called Philly Collage 2. It is number 6. And this one is originally $170. I have marked it down to $140. Ready to hang. All looks good. And shipping is free, just like everything else. Okay. All right. So, oh, we have one more Philly one. This is Sarcones. So any of you who grew up near Philly, your families would probably go down to the Italian market once in a while for a day in Philly and go shopping at the Italian market. Sarcones is a bakery that you open the door and you walk in and it just smells heavenly. It's a great place to get your bread for your Italian meal. You can go somewhere else to buy your ravioli, somewhere else to buy your mozzarella balls and your olives. But Sarcones is the place to go for your bread, good Italian bread. And so I took a picture of the storefront and their sign and then played around with it in Photoshop and in some apps. And this was what I came up with. It's kind of retro looking. I think it's fun. Okay. And the dimensions on this are 9.5 wide and 11 3/4 high. All right, ready to hang. Nice shadow box. All right. So let me put that here. Okay, and then I'm trying to go in order here so that you can follow along on the sales page. The next series are my circle series. So the circles, these are tiny little quilts. And I created these totally in Photoshop. Absolutely everything about this was done in Photoshop. I did not take a picture of anything. I just drew circles, not I drew shapes that were circles and then filled them in with color, overlapped the circles so that there would be transparency in the image. I added color to it. It was very painstaking. I had to make a grid, both ways, vertical and horizontal grid, so that I could fit the circles in and they would fit exactly right. And then I played around with some filters and things. So if you look really closely, you can see that some of the circles have some patterning in them. There's some polka dots, like this one right here has some polka dots on it. This one kind of looks like a mosaic, and this one too has some mosaic look to it. And then when they overlap, they create a transparency. So in other words, the color changes slightly. And then that was printed onto silk and quilted. Now, quilting circles, I quilted this on my long arm, my big machine, and it was rather difficult to quilt the circles, but I managed to do it. So I'm going to hold, this is circles one. This is just 8 by 10. It is mounted onto a stretch canvas, as you can see here, and it's got a wire, so it's ready to hang. Great colors, fun colors. And then I want to show you also, there's another one that is almost exactly the same, but it is slightly different. Circles 3 is this one. So if you hold them up together, you can't really tell the difference if you're standing far away, but when you get closer, let me try to show you some of the differences. Okay, so I'll go like this. The mosaic here is much more defined in this one than in this one. Let me see. Some of pretty much all the mosaic in this number 3, they are more defined. Okay. But they're very, very similar. And it's just a splash of color. I know some artists are doing their live shows and calling it a bathroom sale and just selling all their really small items as a bathroom sale, art for your bathroom. You know, we all have wall space that we're really careful about what kind of art we put on in our living rooms and dining rooms, and then probably in the master bedroom too. But your bathroom, you kind of put, you know, you might rotate some things around. This makes great bathroom art. Okay, there's no glass, there's nothing that's going to get moldy. So you know, it's just mounted on stretch canvas that's been painted black. And these are originally 120. I marked them down to 90. And I have one more of them to show you. So let me put this back. This one is actually my favorite. This one is Circles 2. And this has a much more limited, subdued color palette. So these are all gray, taupe, and orange, and peach. More peach than orange. Okay, it's much more subdued. I think it's really beautiful. Same way I created it in Photoshop. Absolutely the same way, but it is just, you know, a little more subtle, not quite so popsicle. Okay, so there is that. All right, and those would be really nice grouped together. You could just get 2 of them or get all 3 and group them together in some kind of an arrangement. Then we have the limited edition prints. So one thing about my art I discovered when I tried to do matted prints is that my artwork is very random in the sizes that I make my art quilts. I don't make them in 8 by 10 or 11 by 14 or, you know, those normal combinations of dimensions. And so when you go to mat it with a pre-cut mat, it doesn't fit right. So it's been very frustrating for me. So I bought a mat cutter and I decided to custom cut my mats for my limited edition prints. And I have signed each one. And this is probably one of my favorites. This is Kelly Drive. All right. Rod took an image when he was out biking one morning along Kelly Drive, and he sent it to me when he got off his bike and took it. He sent it to me, and I just loved this picture. So I created a quilt out of it. Now it has sold, but I still have my images, my good images of that quilt. And so this is a limited edition print. The edition has 100 prints in it. Um, and I will custom mat any of these that you purchase. They're $75 in the store right now. When the sale is done in a couple days, then you will need to purchase them off the website at a higher price. So they are 110, but today and the next few days through the store, they are 75. So okay. And then I have these hinged. They're taped with archival tape to the back of the mat so that they fit exactly right. And there's a backing board. And then I will put it in a plastic sleeve, make sure that it's got stuff around it so that it won't bend, and I can ship that to you. And then you can put the outer edge of this frame is 8 by 10. So you can purchase your own favorite frame, or if you already have a frame at home that you can use that to frame it and hang it on your wall. Okay, so that makes the price a little less. There you go. So that is number 11. So we're going through all the limited edition prints right now. They are all in 8 by 10 matted to an 8 by 10 outer size, but the inner size of the mat fits around the picture really well. Nice and close, so it looks good. Okay, the next one is Dreaming in Color. So this is number 12. This quilt was created from a piece of silk that my friend Karen Yancey brought me. She bought it somewhere and brought it to me. And it was very multicolored, lots of colors in it. It was kind of a chiffon. So I backed it with a stabilizer and I started adding other colors of silk and fabrics to it. Then these glowing areas, these windows that you see that are glowing, those are made, I painted silk habotai and made those windows. And I won't go into all the details of how I made that, but this quilt is very asymmetrical and it is mounted on another quilt. So the quilt on the back, which it is mounted to, is an African jacquard fabric in a burgundy color. So this original quilt I still have, and you can see it on the website and look at read the description. But this is the print of that quilt. Okay. The next one is another one of my favorites. This quilt has already sold, but this is the print of it. This is And Yet She Persisted. So ever since I was probably in middle school, I've had this image in my head of a gnarly old tree growing on the side of a cliff over an ocean. I think my family vacationed in an ocean area in Japan, and I saw this picture of an old tree and I took a picture of it, but I have long lost that picture. I don't know where it ended up, but the image was in my mind all this time. So I decided to recreate what I saw in my mind. This quilt went to Houston, which is the mother of all quilt shows. I forget which year it went, a few years ago. And it was in the landscape exhibition. And so it's quite dramatic. And I think the tree is quite beautiful, even though it's all gnarly and it's barely alive. It's clinging to that uh, cliff, clinging to the stone. And this is a good example of a print that did not fit well into a pre-cut mat. So I was really careful to make this cut work so that the image looked good in the mat. So that is And Yet She Persisted, number 13. And the next one is Heron, Autumn Heron. Okay, here we go. And this quilt also has sold. But it is, inspired by the Appalachian Trail. I think we were waiting when Liz was doing her Appalachian Trail trek. We were waiting for her in southwestern Virginia. And I saw a heron flying over the area that we were standing. We were near a brook, a little stream, and a bridge, and it was so beautiful. So I kind of, bent reality and made this an autumn scene, even though it wasn't autumn when we were out there. I painted that heron. It is painted. And then there's all these ferns and flowers around the heron. So signed and matted, custom matted as well. Okay, this is an abstract one called Autumn Windows. So I did a whole window series that had to do with interior and exterior, being comfortable inside, um, in my own privacy, being less comfortable going out in public. Having grown up in Japan and coming over here when I was 15, it was a little hard to make the adjustment. And so I did a whole series of quilts artwork that was about that whole idea. And this quilt I made with pretty monochromatic, just shades of blue, but also shades of bronze in the silk around it. And you can see there's Chinese silk brocade in there, some Dupioni silk. The windows are painted silk that I created and framed with bronze silk. So I think the shades of bronze, and there's some gold in there too. I think those colors go together really well and they look really good. There's some shibori dyed by Lisa Reber in the bottom there. So I do purchase a lot of these fabrics from her. So, okay. And then this is one of my most popular pieces. Um, this is Mystic Twilight, number 16. And the print is a little bit larger, but than the other ones, but I kept it matted in an 8x10. So you can pop this into an 8x10 frame. It's signed, and this I created on one of Lisa Reber's pieces of fabric, beautiful background fabrics. And then I did multicolored trees on there, a silk moon or sun, whatever that is. And then I painted all the gold foliage in the foreground. So all painted. And this is a print of the original quilt. Um, there you go. And then the next one, number 17, is one foot in front of the other. This one is actually a huge quilt. This was based on a photo we took when Liz was hiking the Appalachian Trail, running and hiking, and she was doing her fastest known time attempt. And I think it was in Vermont. And so we took a picture and I created a quilt out of this. Again, the background fabric was from Lisa Reber. I did a lot of couching on the trees and painting some of the trees. There's some cheesecloth for some of the foliage. These ferns are all cut out of Avalon. I won't go into all the details here, but this is a digital image of Liz that I printed on silk, just like all those other ones, and altered it a little bit and then appliqued it to the surface. So this is a meaningful quilt to us, and I think there's a lot of people who like it a lot. This is a very manageable size in your 8x10 matted, and you can put it in your 8x10 frame. So that one was number 17. And then this one is Play on Curves. I did about 3 of these quilts, Play on Curves. These fabrics are from Vicki Welsh. And those of you who take classes with me know that I absolutely love her fabrics too. And so I took 2 of her gradients to create this quilt and then added a few other fabrics to it. So just working on curve piecing and having fun with, improvisational piecing, cotton and silk. These are all, by the way, printed on smooth fine art paper. I like how the colors turn out on the smooth fine art paper. So that's what I used for this particular series of limited edition prints. And it's signed just like all the other ones. And it shows, the quilting shows up really well on this. So slight curves in all the piecing, but there were no circles. So I added them in the quilting. You can see it up close here. All right. And I'm going to jump ahead. I added one limited edition print that I had forgotten about. So jumping clear to the end of the page, number 27 is Into the Woods. I didn't want to miss this because it is one of the most popular prints. It is ordered the most. Now, one thing I want to say here is if you order this one, you notice that I made the matting wider. And that's because this is a signed limited edition print, and I had to get my name and the name of the quilt on there. So I cut the matting out wider. If you want this with the mat cut closer to the image, and then you will just know that it is signed by me, and I can just cover up the signature, I will be happy to remat it for you that way. You can just send me an email or message me, and that'll work. So I can, do it real close to the image, just like I did on And Yet She Persisted. So that would be fine. So this is another quilt inspired by the Appalachian Trail. So that's the end of my matted prints. Now we're going to go back up to some of my original quilts. Windows 3. So this one I have had for a while. This one I made quite a while ago, and it is beautiful hand-dyed purple hand-dyed fabric from Lisa Reber. And then I had some gold silk that had a little bit of blue or purple shot through it. And I just thought they played really well together. When you move it around or you walk past it, you can kind of see the purple or blue, cast in that gold. And then in the pieced sections, I added some other batiks and silks that went well. They're blue and orchid and pink and lavender. Just some other colors that look really nicely. I did all the quilting in sort of a horizontal meander. This quilt is originally 300, and I have reduced it to 200. And the dimensions of this quilt, it is 23 wide. It is wider than it is high. So 23 inches wide and then 21 inches high. So trying to give you a good idea of what that looks like. These quilts, I have 2 of these. I have a bigger one too. and they are kind of hard to photograph. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because of all the silk in them. But I think I like it a lot. And this hanger is a bamboo hanger. You can opt to have this included, or if you would rather have me put a dowel through the sleeve in the back with eye screws, I can do that too. So if you look at the back here, there is a hanging sleeve. I always put a hanging sleeve on the medium and large size quilts. And then this bamboo hanger comes off like this. This is what it looks like. Okay. And then you just loop this little hole around the bottom part of the hanger. And then this is movable. The little hanging loop is movable so you can get it exactly level the way you want it. So, and I will show you my dowel system in just a bit. So either way, you let me know if you want it to have the bamboo or a dowel. All right, so there's that one. That one is number 19. Windows 3 is what it's called. Okay, so those make it really easy to hang. You just need one little tiny nail in the wall. Aspen Glow is the next one. Okay, so Aspen Glow is pretty vibrant. Okay, this background fabric is a gradient from Vicki Welch that I purchased. And it goes from this beautiful kind of aqua blue down here to kind of gold at the top. And it has a nice gradation with some greens in here in between. So it's really lovely. I cut the, I the aspen trees are appliqued on, fused on, and then stitched. And the leaves are kind of a metallic gold cotton with a metallic gold on it. The sun is a Dupioni silk that has a lot of kind of a rose color in it, so it's really a warm color. And then down at the bottom, these are rust colored, rust, and some of them are deep red colored. The product is called Evalon. It's kind of like a polyester, nylon polyester, almost like an interfacing. If you are a quilter, you know what that is, or a sewer, you know what that is. But it's sort of a soft paper, but it does not tear. You can paint it. And I scanned these ferns in my printer, real ferns, and then took that image and loaded it into my Cricut cutting machine, and then the cutting machine cut out the ferns and I fused them onto the quilt. I use that for all my ferns that you see in any of my quilts. This also has some little rust and gold dots painted on it. I just wanted a way to bring that gold from up here down into this area. So this is a really long, skinny quilt. Let me show you the hanging system I have for here. So it has the hanging sleeve like the other one did, but I just cut a small dowel and it has little eye screws on the end, okay? And so all you need to do, and I will include this when I ship it to you, all you need to do is have two little nails in each side. They will be hidden because if you notice, the hanging sleeve is narrower than the width of the quilt. So these eye screws do not stick out like that. They're hidden behind the quilt, and you just tap two little tiny nails into the wall and make sure it's level and you're good to go. Okay, so the dimensions on this one, it's 15 inches wide, 35 inches long. The original price is $450. I just made this last month, and the sale price is $375. So really, I'll hold it sideways so you can see the whole expanse. I know it's hard to show on here, But there's the shading. One side of the aspens are black, are dark, and then the other side is white thread. And some of this is painted on with paint. Some of it is thread color and marker. I do use marker. This is not something you are going to ever wash. The way I would recommend that you clean these is just to dust them. You could put a nylon stocking over the end of your vacuum cleaner and just lightly go over it if it's got dust, or just use a feather duster. It's not something you need to worry about washing. I would not recommend washing it at all. Okay. Okay. So any questions or anything? No? Okay. Everybody's very quiet. All right. Next one is views from home. That's this one. And this one I just have pinned. Okay. It's hard to show you the whole thing, but I think you can kind of see it right there. This one, I took a picture of our ornamental grass in our backyard where we used to live. Okay. Um, And so the background, not the window part, but the background of the the quilt is a blown up picture that of that ornamental grass. And then I paneled it into 8 by 10 panels in my in Photoshop, and then printed that out and stitched those panels together. So if you look really closely, you can see where these are stitched together. So there's three across. I think there's 3 panels across and 3 down, and I had to cut some of it off of the bottom. But you can see some of the trees in the background. I cut out some of the background of the ornamental grass. But then what I did was I scanned, here's the whole entire photo with the ornamental grass and the view of my neighborhood here. Let me try to show you a little closer. Yeah. Can you see that? It's hard to see. There you go. But I played around with the colors in Photoshop and then did a lot of quilting on here after I printed it onto silk. So the windows are all printed on silk. They're bordered with Dupioni silk, the frames around each window, but the background images are printed on cotton. So you can do that the same way. You can purchase cotton printing sheets that are attached to paper. You run them through your printer, and then you can um, peel the paper off and stitch it, quilt it. Okay, this one I've had quite a while. I reduced this one quite a bit. This one is 31 inches by 29, and original price was 900, and I have reduced it to 500. So pretty large quilt, and I will be happy to make a hanging system for you that will fit this quilt and include that when I ship it off to you. Okay, just a few more. Maples and Birches 2 has sold and been shipped off to the owner already. Maples and Birches 3 uh, is this one. And it has a custom dowel hanging system on the back, same as the Aspen one. So you can see that right there, but tuck it right back there behind the quilt. This is just kind of a collage. I screen printed with gold paint these maple leaves on a beautiful gradient background. I did mono printing of some of these leaves on a jelly plate. This was a stencil, so I did some mono printing with using a stencil, and the same thing with the ginkgo leaf. So just a lot of fun with some paint and mono printing and screen printing, and then just created some borders. Um, framed it with a beautiful batik and did some quilting on it. These are really fun for me to make. And this one is called Maples and Birches 3. It's number 21 on the list. It is 18 inches wide and 16 inches high. It was originally $170. It is now $140. So the back looks like this. You can see all the quilting on the back there. Okay, like that. Okay, and then next is Tiffany Dome. All right. This one has an interesting story behind it. This one is an image I took of the Tiffany Dome in Chicago. The Tiffany Dome is in the Cultural Center in Chicago. If you go to Chicago and you go down to Millennium Park, um, you go across the street into the Cultural Center, and when you walk up the stairs, it's very ornate. There's a lot of mosaic stuff. Um, they feature the names of a lot of famous writers on the wall. And then you walk into the ballroom, and there's this gorgeous, big, huge Tiffany Dome with chandeliers hanging down. So this is a picture of the Tiffany Dome that I took, but I superimposed it on another picture I took of the forest floor. So that you can see some of the ferns growing here and some of the moss. And then I put this into an app, that kind of color thief app, which takes colors from your photos and mixes them up with whatever images you have in the app. So it's a lot of fun. You just scroll through the different images that pop up and you come up with one that you really like. So this one I really enjoyed because it had the orange, the chartreuse, it has the purple and the green, and just I thought it was really beautiful. So then I took some silk, hand-dyed silk charmeuse that I had, because that plays with the purple in the image really well. So I did a really narrow frame border around that image. And then there is a cotton print of some cobblestones in that sort of crescent pattern that you see someplace in some cities. So I use that as my outer border. And that those cobblestones are kind of a, I don't know what color to say it is, kind of charcoal. It has a little bit of chestnut, not chestnut, just a real deep brown in there. I mounted this onto a stretched canvas that I painted black. It's ready to hang. Um, and there you go. It's quilted, nice circles in there, radiating out from the center of that dome. So there's some really nice, pleasant lines in it. This one, Tiffany Dome, is number 24. It is 14 inches wide by 11 inches high. The original price is $140, and it is reduced to $110. So there's that. And then we have city windows. This is the second of my city windows. I've made two of these. One is at Regina Marie Designs in Skippack. She has that one. And this was the second one I did. I was teaching a class on how to make this, so I was making another one. And those of you who take classes with me will remember how the trees just blended in too much with the background. So I had to really work to get the trees to be darker. And I ended up painting them darker so that they would stand out. There's a lot of metallic thread on the stitching on these trees. This has spiral quilting on it. So this is inspired by the view out my window. We live in a high-rise apartment building, and we're looking right out at another high-rise apartment building, and you always wonder, what's going on? Are they eating dinner? Are they entertaining guests? are they relaxing and reading? It's too far away. You can't really see what's going on. But I wanted to make it playful. This is improvisational piecing, and each window is a different color. And then down in the bottom, you have the trees appliqued on top, and kind of a grid at the bottom. To me, these represent retail space that you often see at the bottom of these high-rise buildings. And then you'll notice that the quilting is spiral quilting. So that is quilting where you start in the middle and you start going around and around and around, wide, out farther and farther with your presser foot. You have it right next to the last pass of stitches, and you create these spirals. And this gives it a lot of energy, gives it a lot of vibrancy and movement, which is, how I feel about living in the city. It's really fun to me. It feels like I came home because I grew up in the city. I grew up in Japan and lived in cities. This has the hanging sleeve on the back. I can make you a dowel that fits this, or the way I had it hanging was, again, with one of these bamboo hangers. So either way is fine. I can include the hanger in your package if you want it. I'll just include that in the price, or I can put the dowel in the package. So this is called City Windows 2. It was $700 originally. It's marked down to $475. It is 19 inches wide and 35 inches long. And then the last one we have is Delancey Place. This is Delancey Place. This is number 26. I'm really proud of this one. This, Rod and I took a walk over to Delancey Place. It's not far from Rittenhouse Square. The homes there are all row homes, but they're mansions inside. They're beautiful, beautiful homes. They have a lot of history. You see the gabled windows at the top. When you walk by in the evening, you can see all the molding along the top of the walls, along the ceiling. They have arched doorways, some of them. And then in the spring and the fall, they go all out with their window boxes. They hire people, of course, to do their window boxes, and it's fun to see how they create them. So I made some window boxes and used some fabric for the flowers, and then just stitched it like crazy to create the feeling of the flowers. You can see the marble steps there with the handrail. There's a tree down here in the bottom with a little iron fence around the trunk of the tree at the bottom. And then there's a tree also at the top, just hanging down into the picture. So again, I like to make it kind of whimsical and playful, and with the different colored windows that you see there. And I did the spiral quilting on this one as well that you can see. I've made a custom dowel for this one. This I backed with just black fabric, so you can really see the stitching on the back there, and the spirals, they really show up. So this one already has a dowel made for it. And that is the last of my live art show. So I hope you enjoy that. If you want to go to the Rachel Derstine Designs, the main website, you can see more of a description of this, and you can see some other photos that I created, so you could see what this looks like in a room on a wall. And let me hang that up. Actually, I don't need to hang it up right now. But I'm really happy that you came to see my art show. And thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I have survived my first live art show. So thank you very much. And we'll see you soon. Okay.